Well, I've always told you, in my opinion, who I thought was the greatest basketball player of all time. Now, not because he's on our hotline here, but you've always called me and says, who do you think the greatest basketball player of all time is, Mike? And you say, Jordan. I said, no, the greatest basketball player of all time. If I was starting a team today, I'd start it with Wilt Chamberlain. That's the greatest basketball player of all time. Well, on our hotline right now, we just happen to have Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt, how you doing today?
Mike, I appreciate the compliments. It's very, very, very nice of you, and it's nice to be here. It's nice to know that some people think highly of me. And as a basketball player or ex-basketball player, all we only hope for is that people give us credit for what we do.
Well, Will, I give you a lot of credit for what you did. You know, one of the things that I hate, Will, is when they say, "Wow, Wilt Chamberlain never played against big guys. He was way ahead of his time." Wilt, did they forget about some of the guys like Thurman and Bellamy and those?
Well, you see, you have a wonderful memory, and that's unfortunate, and it's not the fault of the fan, Mike. It's the fault of the PR people who are out there today selling today's games. They're like a car salesman. They're not out there to promote the 1956 Oldsmobile. They want to promote the 1997 Oldsmobile, which their jobs depend upon. They're here to sell you how great today's players are, not about yesteryear. And so I understand that.
Hey, Wilt, are you a better basketball player than Michael Jordan?
Well, you know, when Michael was a guard, and a few years ago, Mike, you might remember when they were touting Dr. J as the greatest basketball player of all times, and he had a one-on-one against a guy by the name of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It was not too much fun for Dr. J because Kareem just actually killed him, But the point here is that, we do play positions, and I think that most people have never seen me play in my heyday when I was scoring 50 a game and what I was doing, I was a different type of player than I played with the Lakers in the latter part of my career. But I don't think that, on a one-on-one situation, which is not basketball, that Michael would fare very well against me. You understand? I mean, I think I'd rather guard him than him guarding me.
Hey, who would win, Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan one-on-one if you were in your heyday, Wilt?
Well, I don't think that really there would be much of a contest.
You think?
Michael Jordan is 197 pounds, and he is known to be a great leaper and so on and so forth. His vertical is somewhere around 40 inches. As a high jumper, my vertical was 52 inches, and we won't get into a strength thing, and we won't get into a stamina thing, and almost everything that Michael Jordan has on the basketball court, I probably have done, with the exception of making 80% of my foul shots. And so, going one-on-one would be a little bit different. But believe me, I respect the elevation that Michael has taken the whole sport of basketball and what he's done for the players of the day who are commanding these incredible contracts. They owe a great deal of that to the likes of what Michael has done out there on the court for the last decade.
Wilt, sometimes I just grab my head and I say, what's going on today in the 90s? I mean, in your opinion, Wilt, and I don't want to get stuck on this subject because there's a million things I got to ask you, but let's take the NBA general managers today. If Wilt Chamberlain was 21 years old and Michael Jordan was 21 years old and they were starting a team, what percentage do you think would take Wilt and what percentage do you think would take Michael?
Well, you got to look at the point is of what type of game we're playing, Mike, if I could be so bold. During the 60s and the 50s when we were playing mainly, it was a much more technically correct game. And so you were looking for something different from your player. Meaning if a guy did a 360 dunk in 1959 on the basketball court in the NBA, he would be sitting on the bench next to his coach, understand? Because that was hot dogging it to a degree that they didn't want to happen. That was left only for the Harlem Globetrotters. Now, understand this today. You have guys out there doing magical stuff on the court, and their team is 20 and 25 points behind. But the Chicago fan who comes to watch the Bulls play, they want to see something magical out of Michael Jordan. Even though their team is winning or whatever, the important thing is they can see him do something that they can go home and go, about. So the fan has become sophisticated in another way in watching a game of basketball. If you were talking about picking a team of the 60s or going just to play correct basketball, then I would think you'd have to start with a Wilt Chamberlain or a Bill Russell rather than a Michael Jordan.
Wilt, who's running the asylum?
Yeah, you're right. That's the name of my new book, Sports Going Crazy. And I asked the question pointedly because I'm trying to get people to recognize that we do have a problem in sports, and we can do something about it. And it's going totally crazy. You know, at one time, I was like all the rest of us, and I would say that sports people should get paid whatever they can get. You know, now today, I only see one man out there, especially in basketball, who deserves the numbers that they're now paying, and that would be Michael Jordan, who elevates it in every particular level as far as bringing fans in, bringing attention to it, and so on and so forth. I think it's going crazy, not so much even about the money being paid, but these contracts that are 5 and 10 and 15 years, which put people into a position where they've had this security, but no longer the desire to do the things that they were getting paid to do.
Wilt, are they ruining the game of basketball?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's start from the top, and the top would be right with the Commissioner Stern, who is continually looking for expansion. You cannot continue to expand and dilute the talent base, which what they have done, and that's why we have now so many teams playing 100 and 200 and 300 basketball, and all they're doing is beating each other on the bottom of the list. And, you know, now you got teams playing in the 700s, 5 or 6 of those. When the great Boston Celtics teams won for 11 or 13 years when Russell was the hub, their percentage was like in the 600s, mainly. They played 640, 630. The worst team in the league was playing in the middle 400s, and everything was pretty much even. But today it's been carried away because of the dilution of the league with all these expansions.
You talk about these 360 dunks and the behind-the-back, through-the-leg passes. Who's more at fault, Wilt, the player or the coach?
Well, it's definitely the coach. It's definitely the coach because, first of all, the player does it to bring a little bit more of the camera to himself, you know. So he's highlighting his own particular game, and he knows by making something outstanding while he's making a basket, he might be on the 11 o'clock news. You understand? When they show the highlights of the game, they're going to pull his highlight out, and therefore he's going to get more recognition, which translates to more dollars. Because the more he's known, the more famous he becomes, the more commercials he gets. It goes on and on and on.
Sure.
So the coach who allows him to do that, which has no benefit for the team at all, is also encouraging one of the wrong things.
Wilt, the book that you got out, Who's Running the Asylum, why did you decide to write this now?
Well, I am a sports lover. I have 3 dishes at home alone. I own some businesses which also deal with showing a great deal of sports. And I'm concerned that the direction in which sports are now going will be the ruination thereof. I mean, I owe most of my life to what I was able to do in sports, and I, in some way would like to give something back. And something back is if we can get things kind of straightened out a little bit and put things on a better keel. I'm asked all the time, Mike, about what do I think about these high school kids coming out of high school right into the pros. Are the pros really correct for even entertaining them and giving them a chance, or even sort of like drawing them to them? And I say to you, you shouldn't be worried about the high school kids coming out. You should be worried about the fact whether the NBA is lowering its standards and its playing abilities down to high school level.
Wilt, how do people get the book?
Well, they get the book through an 800 number because the proceeds of this books are going to various charities that I'm involved in, and we have an 800 number which is 280-1776. That's 280-1776, and we're doing it through an 800 number because and also I have a website that people who use that area can also find it there and order from there. But we are trying to do it a little differently because the bookstores and all who do a wonderful job selling books, but they also take all of the real proceeds. So
I see.
We're trying to handle it that way.
Well, 2 questions, Wilt, and we're talking with Wilt Chamberlain, who has the book out, Who's Running the Asylum. You can get it by calling 1-800-280-1776. That's 280-1776. Wilt, 2 questions that I said to myself, if I ever had Wilt Chamberlain on, I got to ask him, okay?
You got to ask him, okay? Now, let me answer your question.
Okay.
I'll be more than happy to answer your question for you because it's a number that's become infamous as far as concerning myself, and I like to address it because it was addressed in the book in a correct manner. But a lot of people didn't read the book; they just read and heard about the number of 20,000 encounters.
Yes.
I use the word, first of all, encounters.
Now, wait a minute. Some people use encounters as like when they encounter a UFO.
Well, exactly. Well,
these weren't UFOs, were they?
For me, a lot of ladies are like, out of this world. So therefore, I can have a right to call them a UFO.
Yeah.
But the point is that for the ladies that I've known, the ladies I know, they were never meant to be considered a number, maybe a beautiful number, whatever. But I didn't get into being graphic. I didn't get into calling names. I was talking about an era of my life, mainly back in the 60s and the 70s, that this is what was happening, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we were involved in a great deal of that. So I gave a figure of speech number, which was used as a literal translation there, but that's okay because the media, and you're part of the media, and I'm now part of the media, we hype up on things of that particular nature. But it came out of a chapter in my book where I said sex rules the world.
Okay.
And I should know because I've had at least 20,000 encounters.
Yeah, what an expert you are.
Yeah, right. So therefore I should be an expert on stuff. But the last sentence in my book, though, Mike, is really what's most telling, which I want people to really understand because I'm not here to promote promiscuity. I said, though, for all the men who think having 1,000 different women is really a cool thing, I have found out having one woman 1,000 different times is really the real thing.
Oh, that's
nobody
good.
nobody picked up on that, Mike.
Yeah.
That's in that same book with the 20,000.
Yeah.
And it is what we were leading to, but. You know how we like to sort of glamorize and however. Mm-hmm. And so my last book I wrote, by the way, was my first book that I wrote myself. I write these books myself. So I was maybe a little bit in error, and yet I knew, and I said in the chapter that sex rules the world. Well, that's all they talked about from that book mainly was that number. But give me credit for one thing, I asked you, Mike. I want one little bit of credit about that. Right. I should get an award from the Board of Education. Because every time people see me now, they start going, 20,000, let me see, he's 55 years old right now, and they start dividing, and they add, and they multiply. And when I see them shaking their heads...
How did you know? I was just doing it now.
Yeah, right, exactly, right, there you go. So I have done more for math,
yes.
You know what I'm saying? Than a lot of people, man.
Obviously, I won't come up with the numbers I came up with, but it looks like you didn't do much sleeping, Wilt.
Well, I mean, hey, I was a busy man. I gotta admit, I was a busy man. I came along in the era. It's so long ago, Mike, that people don't remember. I came along in the era when women discovered the pill.
Mm. Oh, yes.
Understand that? Do you know what that meant?
Yeah, that meant that it was easier.
Right. Yes. And that meant that a lot of women all of a sudden want to take upon themselves the role of men.
Right.
Well, now they didn't have to worry about being confronted with that nine months of pregnancy they thought or whatever. However, so they changed their attitudes. Towards sex, and people were not really reading all these things that I was putting to what I was trying to say. They changed their attitudes. So luckily for me, I was a strong, young, average American male who was taking advantage of all these different changes at that particular time.
Strong and young is the least you can say there, Wilt. Hey, Wilt, does any of these ladies ever walk up to you and say, "Hey, what number was I?" Yeah,
well, I get all sorts of things. The comment I get most often is when someone sees me with a lady, and it's rather embarrassing, but it happens. They will say, "Oh, is that 20,001?"
Yes.
And I go, "Well, man, you're really way off on the numbers if you're going to be adding up and stuff. That was 7 years ago."
Now, Wilt, Willie Mays, when he hit all those home runs, and,
right.
And Hank Aaron hit all those home runs,
right,
over 700. Yeah. They remember. Home run number 100. Not a home run number 200. And, the milestone home runs. They remember all of them. Okay?
They remember the milestones. Huh?
Yeah. Do you remember 5,000?
I remember my milestone, which was my which is my first, encounter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the one. After that, they maybe became so fast and furious that maybe a little hard to remember milestones. And I didn't really, put the X's on the walls as people think, or the notches in the gun, because understand this right here.
Yes.
Anyone who thinks that it's man who does the conquering there, he's totally off, because women control that whole situation.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
And you know that, and I know that. So therefore, maybe, Mike, I'm the most used man ever. So I
feel so sorry for you. Yes,
yeah, I feel sorry for me.
Yeah, I really.
Because I could have grown to be 8 feet tall.
Sure, it'd stunt your growth.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Speaking of the gun, now, how's it doing? I mean, did you ever have to get it redone or anything?
I've been a fortunate man. I come from a bloodline that Oliver and whatever, you understand? So some of us are more fortunate than others, but I think it's attitude. It's all about attitude. And you have to, but what I really, in all honesty, want to say, I have all the respect in the world for women.
I know you do.
I come from a family of 6 wonderful sisters and a mother who raised me, I think, correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was never meant to be, anyway, belittling to women. It was, in fact, I thought I was doing a better way by using numbers rather than using names and using glorification and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But like I say, we get caught up in numbers, and I can understand that. In fact, when I used a number, I knew that the number would bring upon, some size and
some wows.
Whatever.
What a man. Hey, now the other thing I said I got to ask Wilt Chamberlain. I heard this story long time ago. Wilt Chamberlain is at a party in Los Angeles. Don't get nervous, Wilt. I'm not going there, okay?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not going
right. You're at a party one night in Los Angeles, right? You may have been drinking, you may not have been drinking. I don't know. I can't remember all the details. And at this party was Jim Brown.
Jim Brown comes to the party. I know just where you're leading to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you started arguing with Jim Brown. The both of you were arguing back and forth because you both had pretty big egos.
Right.
Who was a better athlete?
Right.
And you went out in the backyard and you marked off 100 yards and you raced.
Right.
And you beat him twice in a row. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, that's you only got a part of that story, but that story what you got right there was not really like that. Jim came into the party with his sneakers on, and I'm dressed up, and I had a drink, and I was feeling good, and we both had big egos, no doubt about it. And what you don't know is Jim has challenged me into everything from killing flies to jumping off of bridges. You understand? So here's his chance once again to challenge me in a foot race, and which he had done me before. And I said, Jim, you don't stand a chance in the foot race against me. And blah, 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 blah. So we went out twice, and I really whipped him really badly twice, and that's how it goes. But we challenge each other in all sorts of things. We always had, and the only thing about it is that Jim is an incredible liar. You can beat Jim right in front of 1,000 people, and he will say, well, it was a tie.
Now, did somebody at that party that night when you were racing, did you step on a piece of glass or something?
I stepped on a piece of glass, and then they cut my toe off.
Yeah, now
because I had to come. I was on my dress shoes. I was all dressed all up, blah, blah, blah. And I took my shoes off and ran right down the middle of the street. Well, I don't know who told you a story, but whoever told you are totally correct, because I stepped on a piece of glass and damn near cut one of my toes off.
Yeah, I heard that story when I was a young kid. I never forgot it, and I said if I ever talk to Wilt, I got to ask him that question.
Oh, that's
because you're right. I've asked Jim Brown, and he's ducked it every time.
He ducked it, Joey. Of course he will. He won't. He'll tell me right to my face, "Oh, you never beat me." Okay. I think so. I think so.
Wilt Chamberlain, God bless you. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight. I really mean this, Wilt. You were one of my... I wish my brother was here because we used to argue all the time. Okay. Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. You're one of my all-time favorites, Wilt. I really
appreciate that. Thank you again. And once again, thank you for Cleveland for having us in there a couple of weeks ago. And I enjoyed it, okay?
Wilt, it was our pleasure.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Wilt.